Welcome to the People's Guild.
Each week we explore the Splinterland universe with guests from all across the mythical land of Praetoria.
Join us on our journey as we discuss the evolution of the game, the strategy, the lore, and the exciting path that lies ahead.
To support the People's Guild, make sure you subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts, and also check us out on PeakD, YouTube, and Twitter.
Send your questions, suggestions, and epic battles in our comments through Twitter or email at thepeoplesguildspl@gmail.com. We'll feature the best in our episodes and maybe airdrop you some prizes.
Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show.
All right, welcome back to the People's Guild. Another week, another episode, another fantastic guest. This one we haven't had on in quite some time. We were just talking a little bit off air about our last conversation and the benefit of hindsight, and just kind of reflecting on some of the things that we had talked about that were quickly coming down the pipeline, better part of 13, 14 months ago, and just kind of seeing where we achieved success and where we kind of belly flopped. But we're certainly due for a good conversation. Real quick shout out to Aqualis, Crypto Eater, and all the stuff that's going on over there. Go check out the Aqualis Splinterlands market. Some updates soon to come there. So without further ado, we've got the lead dev over at Team Steam Monsters Splinterlands, Cryptomancer. Welcome back to the show, man. It's great to see you.
Hi, guys. It's really great to be back on the show with you and talking with you today. I think we've got lots of exciting things coming up this week, and there's a lot going on. It's good to be here.
Yeah, man. Great to have you. I guess, the big thing has to be that land is coming out tomorrow. Some people, I'm not sure when we're going to get this out, but some people might be listening to this while they, set up their plots and get that all taken care of. So, would love to hear, what you're feeling on this land eve here. What's your take as someone who's been living through it for a while now?
Well, I am tremendously excited. I think it's been a really long journey to get here. There have been a lot of hardships and trials and tribulations along the way. And it is just so amazing and such a big feeling of relief and fulfillment that we're getting this release tomorrow. And I personally am feeling more excited about land than I think I am about Christmas this year. I can't wait to dive in and start going through all my plots and setting things up. There's a lot of planning that goes into devising a land strategy as well. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how everything plays out and the dynamics of it all going forwards.
What has been some of the, what have been some of the roadblocks that, can you touch on sort of what the team's been doing, what some of the roadblocks to get some of these delays and what you guys have finally been able to do to get over the hump and get it out here?
Sure. Well, I think one of the big things is it's just been such a massive project compared to what we've done before, that it required a lot more coordination than we've seen in previous projects. Like a lot of times before, it's just been like one guy going off and coding something, and then it launches. And for land, one guy isn't really enough. It's such a huge thing. Farpatrat has been the main dev on it, and he's been working on it for a long time. And then earlier this summer, we brought in some other devs. The rest of the team helped out. Myself and Antioch and Investigator, Hardpoint as well. So we had a whole bunch of people coming in and working on it. And we found that the coordinating between so many different people was quite a challenge. So we kind of had to figure out how to do that effectively. And I know a lot of people were probably thinking, well, what's up with the release date? We put out one date and we smash right through it. We put out another date, we smash right through it. And I know it was starting to feel a little bit like the boy who cried wolf. Like, can any of these release dates be trusted? So that was certainly a little bit frustrating. And I think what led to some of the trouble there is that there were some disconnects between what maybe some people thought the state of the project was and what the actual state of the project was. It was really hard to kind of define a definition of done. Like we would do a bunch of work on it and we thought it was getting really close, but then a bunch of bugs would come up and we'd be like, oh, wait a minute. All right, so we'd look at those bugs and we'd think, oh, these don't look so bad. But then once we get into them, it's like, oh, wait a minute, now we got to go redesign this part of the system, and this has a knock-on effect on this stuff way over here, and it just led to more bugs. So for every couple that we squashed, a few more rose up to take their place, and it just felt for a long time like kind of a never-ending process. But over the last few weeks, we finally whittled down the bug list. We got to a point where fewer new bugs were being created than old bugs that were being fixed. So the count got smaller and smaller. And finally, we were like, okay, yes, we're there. We're going to go for it. Let's launch this sucker.
As you fix stuff, like new issues were coming up, and that kind of complicated the timeline.
Yeah. That happened a lot and made it really hard to tell when it was actually going to be finished. Like we thought, oh, maybe it'll only take another week to finish this. But then 5 new critical bugs come up and we find that part of the system needs to be redesigned to deal with it. And so that led to a lot of trouble with time estimates for this thing. I think in hindsight, it would have been much better if we stayed silent about the date and didn't try to estimate it until we actually were close to release. That kind of bit us a little bit.
Well, for those of us that aren't necessarily the most tech savvy in terms of understanding code and moving stuff into production, I kind of equate it to a little bit of a spider web effect. So like you adjust one bug over here, and all of a sudden there's ripples across the code. Is that essentially what you're alluding to, Cryptomancer? Is you sort out one bug and then there's ripples across to other aspects of the code, and all of a sudden you're left with a handful of new bugs? Is that essentially what was going on?
Yes, that's exactly it. It's kind of like a massive interrelated spider web. You pull on one part of the web and it has ripples way over here with another piece that you didn't anticipate. And land is also, it's a very new type of system from a technical point of view. It's built using an architecture that we haven't really done before, and a coding strategy and design philosophy that's very different from other parts of the game. So not only were we trying to solve these bugs, we were trying to do it with kind of a whole new paradigm shift in the underlying technology and the coding principles involved. So that made it doubly challenging.
What was it that necessitated this kind of shift in philosophy there? You call out it's a whole new paradigm shift of how we're establishing code. Is this for kind of smoother future iterations on top of 1.5? Is that the logic for shifting kind of the way that you guys are going about coding?
So a couple things. One, we wanted to build a framework with 1.5 that could be easily extended to cover all the things that are going to be coming in future releases. So if you like, it's like building a house. You lay the foundation first, and then you build the walls and everything on top of that. So 1.5 is the concrete foundation, and that needed to be designed in a way that it's easy to extend, because we don't want to have to rebuild everything for 2.0. We want to build on what we've already done before. And part of making sure that could be done was doing it in as efficient a way as possible. So when you like stake cards and you do things in land and you harvest resources, what you actually see from the user's point of view, it all looks pretty straightforward, right? It doesn't look like you stake your cards and your PP changes and you see the results. Okay, but on the back end, behind the scenes, there is a lot that goes into that. There's tons of calculations, number crunching, various corner cases and processing that has to go on. And we need to make sure that all of that processing is done fast enough that it doesn't slow down the game. Because all of this at the same time, all of the entire rest of the game is still running. It's still processing ranked battles and tournaments and the rental market and all that stuff. So we need to make sure that the whole thing keeps moving smoothly and doesn't get bogged down with lots of calculations. So we part of what we did was attempt to move a lot of calculations from the actual JavaScript source code into the database backend. That's the technology shift that I mentioned. And that leads to a lot more efficiency when you can do stuff directly in the database. You don't have as much back and forth communications going on between the code and the database. The database can do a bunch of stuff and then give the results of all the calculations back to the code. So doing stuff directly in the database like that is very efficient, but it's very difficult to reason about logically and think about. It's very different than writing JavaScript code. And that shift in thinking and how we tried to manage things that way, it led to a lot of efficiency improvements, but in hindsight, it ended up being very difficult to maintain. And that's part of the stuff that slowed us down, trying to figure out how to do all these new things like that.
I'm wondering how much of this will be, or how much of the information will kind of be either published to the blockchain or even just like public information. Like, will I be able to go look at Bjangles? I know, at this plot, it's owned by Bjangles. Will I be able to look at it and say, all right, he's got these cards staked here. This is what his production is. This is what he's earning. Is that going to be something that we'll be able to explore what other players are doing, or is that going to be only available to the landholder themselves?
I think Farpatron, as the lead land dev, would be in a much better position than myself to answer that question. I think, as with a lot of things that we do, there has to be a balance between what you can see about other people's accounts and what would be better to be kept hidden. I personally think it's fine to be able to see everyone else's plots and the cards they have staked and all that stuff. I'm not 100% sure if all of that is publicly available in the APIs now. So I'm kind of going to have to punt on that one a little bit in deference to Farpatron.
Cool. Yeah. So you have what, about just over 2,000 plots, or around 2,000? Is it exactly 2,000 or so, I believe? Or
I've got around 3,000 myself.
3,000. Okay.
Yes.
Nice.
So a lot of times behind the scenes, I've been really telling them we need to make sure it's easy for region holders. I've been taking the big region holder perspective, and it's going to be pretty tedious, I think, going through that many plots.
How many plots are you planning on, getting up and running, the first day or the first couple days?
Oh gosh, it's hard to say. I'm gonna have to. I played around a little bit in Mavs QA, but I didn't really do a whole lot. So I'm gonna have to see how quickly I can go through my plots. But I would guess maybe a couple hundred on the first day or two, and then gradually work up from there. I don't actually have enough DEC to stake for more than an entire region, so I'm probably only going to be working maybe a maximum of 30% of my plots to begin with, and then I'll gradually flesh out the rest over a long period of time. But I mean, I think that's fine. It's good to have goals to work towards, and we don't want everyone to be able to totally max out all their plots from day one. You need to work at it and build it up like an actual business over time.
Yeah, I think that's the real key. A lot of folks, there's a great sense of urgency to have 1.5 released onto production, and I think there's certain folks who are expecting a massive success and 50% of land being utilized right out of the gate. But a lot of these things are designed to be the long-term play. I think about the Secret of Praetoria, for example. It's Matt, as little very ambiguous detail as we've gotten on the Secret of Praetoria. The one thing that has been made crystal clear is that it's the long-term play. So I think shifting that perspective to land being the long-term play and playing the long game with respect to filling out and fleshing out plots and working towards max utilization across all of our respective plots. What would be, so I'm asking you to take off your dev hat and look at things through the player lens and stakeholder lens. What would you deem a successful kind of percentage that we see on 1.5, say before the end of the year? So, about a month out from now.
That's really hard to say. Oh man, I have no idea exactly how much land is going to be utilized when we launch. I have a feeling it's going to be a fairly low amount to begin with, simply because we do have a lot of region holders, and they are going to really struggle to utilize all of their plots. I think probably the smaller holders, the people that have just a few plots or maybe up to an entire tract, I think they'll probably get everything set up. They'll just plow through it all. But the bigger holders especially are not going to be able to do that, because even if you've got the plots, the bigger holders probably lack all of the resources, all of the DEC and the cards that need to be staked and the titles, totems, etc. So I would guess that they're going to mostly build up slowly. If we see more than, say, 20% of land being utilized by the end of year, I will consider that a pretty big success. And then we should gradually see that percentage start to creep up. But the way it's designed, we definitely don't need all land plots like completely utilized from day one. It's not supposed to work like that. We're supposed to see it start small and then gradually build up over time. So I know a lot of people have been thinking about the flywheel, getting DEC up to peg and getting that flywheel started with burning SPS for DEC. And I think this is definitely, land is going to be a big contributor to that, but I don't know how much of a sustained effect we're going to see right away. I think for the most part, people already have the DEC that they're planning to put in from day one, and we'll see a gradually increasing amount being staked on land as people over time begin to utilize more and more of their plots. So it'll contribute to the flywheel, certainly, but I don't think it's going to be a bam from day one, we're there sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, DEC is put up pretty close to peg as it is, so hopefully this will kind of get us up over to that hump.
It is, yes. I've actually been pleasantly surprised by how close it's been to peg over the last few weeks, and it's been hitting it a couple times, and we've seen a little bit of SPS starting to get burnt, even beyond what Aggroed himself burnt. So it's a really positive sign. I like that it's already been bumping up against the peg before land even launches, and I certainly hope to see that continue. But like I said, I don't know if it's going to be completely sustainable from day one. We might see it hit the peg, go back down, maybe hit the peg again, go back down a little bit. It might kind of bounce around a little bit, but I'm hoping it stays closer to the peg than not.
Yeah, I think that 20% is kind of what has been in my mind's eye as well. So it's refreshing to hear and kind of reaffirming to hear that that's a good baseline for you in terms of deeming land getting rolled out a success or not. Yeah, so the flywheel stuff we've seen, and maybe you guys have more accurate numbers than I do, but it looks like, according to Splinter Cards, we've seen about 60 something million SPS burned for DEC. Is that, do either of you guys know if that's accurate?
I don't have the actual numbers off the top of my head. I'd have to check, but I know it's been a fairly large amount so far, and that's something like that sounds pretty close to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, it sounds like Matt's vision is I think, and I'm going to quote him from to the best of my abilities from the town square about an hour ago, stating that it looks like the flywheel has already started, credited to DEC hitting peg and then justified by those SPS tokens getting burned for DEC, but he wasn't shy in saying it's not. We haven't fully greased the wheels. He's expecting, things like all of the LPs that are going to be coming out to really get the machine moving on the flywheel. And my understanding is all of those LPs will be part of what's coming in 2.0. Is that? Are you at liberty to speak on that, Cryptomancer?
I can't say exactly how all the LPs are going to work. I think the majority of them will come with 2.0. We are planning to have the grain LP coming out as the first one in the near future. I know Farpatrad's already started looking at ways to code that, and that will probably be one of the highest priorities after the launch tomorrow. Because I know a lot of people are looking forward to being able to put their grain into the LP. And I can't say really anything about how they're going to be utilized in 2.0. Let's wait for the 2.0 white paper to come out. But I will say there will be nice incentives for participating in the LPs as a liquidity provider.
Do you know when that 2.0 paper is going to come out?
I think Matt's still planning on having it out by the end of the month. So, I mean, there's only a few more days in the end of the month. So
yeah, that's pretty quick. Yeah. Have you seen a draft or a copy or anything of the white paper?
I have seen a draft, yes. Obviously, I can't discuss it publicly before it's revealed, but I will say I personally find it fairly mind blowing, and I think you guys will too. And let's, for some context, let's think about this for a minute. So, in Land 1.5, everybody has been agonizing over how to split their plots between grain farming, SPS mining, and research. Like, what's the best ratio to use for everything? Well, you think that's been tough agonizing over. Just wait till 2.0 when there are so many more resources. Now, that's going to cause some serious angst over in a fun way.
I wonder if it's worth kind of postponing deployment of land until that 2.0 white paper comes out. Yeah, I'm certainly not going to do that. I've already got kind of a strategy in mind. I'm a very limited plot holder to begin with, so I don't know if I can play the big kind of whale games that you guys holding in excess of 4-digit plots of land can play. But yeah, I wonder if it's worth putting into consideration postponing deployment of land until that 2.0 white paper is coming out.
I wouldn't say so. I think it's going to be hard to predict exactly what changes you're going to need to make to your land strategy to take 2.0 into account. And even once the white paper is out, things will still be subject to change, as we've seen before. Like, we try to stick to the white papers as much as possible, but they're not set in stone. And I think there will be plenty of time for people to make adjustments if they want to. One of the things I've been thinking about for myself is, well, say that you're producing grain on a certain plot, and then in Land 2.0, you find out that terrain type would be better suited to a different building, like not a grain farm, maybe I don't know, maybe a stone mill or a lumber mill or a salt mine or whatever. So you might have to think about changing your building types to be more aligned with the type of plots that you have. That I think is going to be the biggest decision that people really have to make. Do they keep their plots producing what they're producing now, or do they change to another type of production? And I don't think there's really a great need to worry about that at this phase, because when you change worksite types, that only takes 24 hours. You don't have to clear the plot all over again. So it's something that can be done pretty quickly in the grand scheme of things. So I think for now, just focus on 1.5, focus on your strategy for that. And then later on, once we're closer to 2.0, you can think about how you might want to retool your strategy for that.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're always going to have to clear the plot at least first, right? So it's always probably a good idea to get started with that right away.
Yeah, you certainly can't go wrong with trying to make sure all your plots are cleared before 2.0. And change is the name of the game, really. I mean, this isn't a static thing where you just set it and forget it. So part of playing the land game is being flexible and being able to roll with things, so to speak, so that when changes come along and the game evolves, you're able to evolve with it. So being able to do that effectively is what's going to make someone a good land owner and good land manager.
So Cryptomancer, is this spelling the end of your playing days? You know, I know Matt Clark has been pretty vocal about land being, you know, his cue to settle into the comfort of retirement as far as playing ranked and playing brawls. Are we going to see Cryptomancer still taking his place on the battlefield at all, or are you going full on retirement and putting all your cards to pasture?
My thoughts are pretty similar to his. I think all of my older cards from Untamed back are going to be dedicated to land. So I definitely won't be picking up those gold foil alpha phrase in brawls anymore. I probably will still maintain a modern deck. So I have a maxed Chaos Legion set. I'll probably max out Rebellion too, and I'll use that to play in modern exclusively. But I don't think I'll be playing wild format at all. All the older cards will go to land. I don't want to completely give up playing the game, playing ranked battles altogether, because I mean it's fun. I want to have a modern deck and battle with it, and all the new stuff that's coming in Rebellion, the new abilities and mechanics. That's all going to be really fun to play with. So I definitely don't want to stop playing completely. But yeah, my older cards are going to be the land workers, and I'll focus on playing modern exclusively.
Have you been getting some wild battles in these last couple days here, these last couple weeks here, for just to kind of use those cards the couple last times, or have you been focused more on playing in modern because the rewards are better?
Not really. I've been focusing on modern pretty much ever since the bots were banned from modern. That's been my thing. The older cards, I do miss them sometimes. It feels a bit strange playing in modern and not having some of my older cards available to use. It really affects strategy a whole lot. So the game feels very different in modern format versus wild.
Yeah, well, I feel like this is a natural segue into all things Rebellion. But before we cross that path, let's I do want to say, thank you for all the help that the team has been putting in, these crazy hours, crazy efforts to get land across the finish line. And I realize that this is an audio only podcast, but throughout that entire conversation, Cryptomancer is speaking of land with a big smile on his face. You can feel that there's a collective sigh of relief coming from both the team and the community with 1.5. So yeah, happy Land Eve, everybody. It's the time is here finally.
Land Eve indeed, yeah. I hope everyone has a great time tomorrow. I know I will. It's so awesome to finally see it happening. feels almost a little bit unreal, like floating in a dream, kind of.
Well, let's shift gears into Rebellion. So obviously, you just alluded to the mechanics, the new abilities, and there's certainly going to be a massive meta shift, but there's also like the big change in mechanics as far as we've got predetermined burns set in place to kind of limit the number of packs that ever hit the market. We've got a completely new philosophy getting rolled out to qualify for airdrops. So what is it about Rebellion objectively that you're most excited about seeing come into play here, Cryptomancer?
Well, a couple of things. So first, the two-stage battles, the new tactics phase. That is just sheer awesomeness. I am so excited about that. Being able to pick different cards that you can add abilities to, that really increases player agency and adds a new tactical dimension to battles. And it's also a trial run for how items and spells are going to work in the land expansion. They will be applied very similarly to the Rebellion tactics. So that's one thing I'm tremendously excited about. And the other thing, of course, is the new conflicts mechanic for airdrops. Conflicts is my own pet project. It's what I've been in charge of for the last couple months. Myself and Antioch have been doing the development work for that, and that is going to be that's going to add a whole new passive game mode to things, and it's only really the beginning of what's possible with the whole conflict system. We have a lot of plans for that going forward.
What are some of the ideas that you guys are hypothetically tossing around?
So there was originally a whole lot more to the conflicts that we had to cut and leave on the drawing room floor that we just couldn't fit in time to make a December launch. The way the plan is now, you stake cards and packs on these battle wagons, and by doing so, you participate in the war effort against the Chaos Legion. You join the rebellion, and you get rewarded with airdrop cards for contributing to the rebellion. And each conflict will have a story that goes along with it. So you'll see some narrative elements that the creative team has put together, and it'll tie in with the lore. And as the conflicts advance, there will be 9 of them total throughout the year. As they advance, you'll see the story also advance, and they actually take place in different places on the map in Praetoria. But we were originally planning on developing conflicts into an entirely new type of battling game mode. So the idea is that while you have your cards staked on these battle wagons, they actually fight against other teams. And they would have additional stats like stamina, attack, defense, healing, support. And there are all these rules for how these stats interacted to affect the outcome of the battles. It had a very D&D kind of feel. It put me in mind of a D&D dungeon master, like rolling the dice to decide the outcomes of your character's actions. And indeed, I actually had the whole thing planned out and in the code, and we were actually going to call it the Conflicts Dungeon Master. So we had this whole passive battling system set up, and cards could actually die, and you'd have to buy special potions to resurrect them, and all sorts of cool stuff. That was the original vision that Nate and the creative team put forward, and I did the technical planning for it. But ultimately, it was determined that it was too much to do for the initial launch. We really wanted to get this out in December, close to the launch of the main Rebellion set itself. We didn't want to wait a couple more months to fit all this extra stuff in, so we had to cut it out. But in the future, we're really hoping we can add some of these extra passive battling elements back in, and this could ultimately be how we introduce PvE in the wilds of Praetoria. So you can imagine the conflict system being used for things like going on quests to earn certain rewards. Or it could also, you could have like raids on pirate ships, or like go into the forest and you have to recover this mystical artifact from somewhere. Or it could also be used for boss fights. I know people have been talking about boss fights forever. When are we getting boss fights? Conflicts could lead into that. So it's not just going to be 9 rebellion conflicts and then it's done. It's going to come into play after rebellion for a lot more things down the line.
Man, I love that the conflicts, on the surface, it sounds like it's marrying a few different aspects of the game. So number one, it's bringing land into the picture. Each conflict is taking place somewhere throughout the map. It's bringing in the lore, the narratives, and shout out to the creative team. I love that we were privileged to receive one of the rebellion cards to kind of leak out to the community, and we had the lurking puffer. It's just a common earth card, but everything around the card is just so cool. There's like species and genus and splinter and all this very, very cool detail. And it sounds like a lot of that stuff is coming into play with the conflicts, and then of course the card aspect is going to play a huge role in the conflicts as well. So I just love seeing the conflicts kind of bringing these 3 different aspects of the game that were, previously kind of independent of one another. Bringing them all together for, a new form of gameplay for the community. And it's a little bit of a disappointment to hear that we couldn't get the conflict Dungeon Master made into Rebellion, but something to look forward to for subsequent releases.
Yep, definitely. It'll be fun to build that out in the future, and you'll start to see all the things like the species and genus and all the extra attributes that the cards are going to have coming into play in various ways. Like one thing that I think would be pretty cool is if you got certain boosts or different things happen if you can utilize groups of matching cards. Like say you get an extra boost if you have 3 goblins on your team, or you get like a +1 to attack if you manage to use 4 dragons or whatever. So the species of the card can come into play in various interesting ways, and that could also contribute ultimately to some kind of achievement system. Like you get a badge for your first all goblin team or something like that. So there's a lot we can do with those sorts of attributes.
That's awesome. Are you gonna go back and, I know some of the cards already have like a certain race or species. Are you guys planning to go back and, give those attributes to older cards, or is it just going to be, we're going to start this with Rebellion and just kind of roll it forward as we go?
I think it'll be started with Rebellion, but ultimately it will probably be backfilled to all of the older sets as well. That's just something that would happen naturally over time. I don't know what kind of timeline or plans really creative has for that, but it makes sense that we would do that with the older sets as well.
So we've all seen kind of over the last week a steady trickle of some of these new Rebellion cards coming out. Is there anything that you've kind of pinpointed as a potentially meta shifting card or series of cards and abilities that kind of highlight an upcoming strategy that wasn't previously available to you that you're most excited about?
There is one that I had in mind. So ambush. Ambush is probably the ability that I'm most excited about. I really, really love having cards being able to ambush people. Like they jump out of the bushes and go, run, startle the other cards. They're so startled they're not able to take any action. And the ambusher gets in his first strike. Now, just imagine if an ambush was used in the tactics phase. Say there was a summoner that could grant ambush, and you could pick which cards actually get that ability. Now, wouldn't that open up all sorts of interesting possibilities? Just imagine what that could do with, say, a recharge card. Like, all these recharge cards, people think, meh, it's recharge, maybe not such an exciting ability. It looked good on paper, but it didn't get really used that much in practice. Well, imagine putting ambush on a recharge card so that the card recharges in the ambush phase and then gets to attack in the first round. That would breathe whole new life into all of those recharge cards. So if you could do that, there's just so many interesting combos and possibilities that you could come up with. So that ability excites me the most.
I think we saw on, I may be mistaken, but I think I saw it floating around on Twitter. There was I want to say it was the rare dragon summoner that had the ability to tack on ambush to two monsters. And my first thought was, granting ambush to somebody like the Chaos Dragon, and all of a sudden you're able to wipe out some of those, like small HP support cards that are floating around in the back of a lineup typically. Before the game even starts, you're just, spelling defeat for the opponent right off of the bat. So yeah, there's some very cool stuff coming with ambush for sure. I felt like the one that will probably be, and this is all, hypothetical. I haven't had a chance to play with any of the cards in the map server or anything like that, but I feel like Lookout will probably be the most impactful, at least to the current meta, because the amount of times that you get, the Bandit, Uraeus coming to your back line, or Death Team has a really strong sneak lineup that you can run to in Modern. Being able to play that Lookout ability it feels like is going to have, at least on the surface, one of the wider reaching impacts on what the future of the meta looks like.
Yeah, I think Lookout's going to be pretty helpful, especially in regards to ambush, because it acts as an effective ambush counter, reducing the damage taken from cards that have ambush. So I think we're going to see a lot of Lookout. Being able to mitigate all those sneaks and opportunities, that's going to be tremendously helpful.
I've seen a number of the cards that have come out with sort of weapons abilities, but no attacks, right? So I've seen like the card we were talking about, the Lurking Puffer has poison, but it doesn't have an attack. And I saw another card with explosion, but it doesn't have an attack. So are they designed just to be used with weapons training? Is there going to be, a summoner that'll be able to grant weapons training or grant attacks in that tactics phase?
I'm not sure about a summoner that can do that, but yeah, definitely we want there to be a lot of opportunities for synergy between weapons training and those no attack cards. So those no attack cards were kind of designed deliberately to be paired with weapons training in various ways. So we want to increase the amount of opportunities that people have to take advantage of combos like that.
Nice.
Yeah, that weapons training buff caught me a little bit by surprise. It feels like, looking at the soulbound reward cards, I can pick a handful of the non-attackers that we see more than others. Like Noah the Just, I think is really helpful just as purely a support card, whether or not he gets granted the weapons training. You see him a fair bit. And then the fire, Idri Fire, I think is her name. The fire taunt card is another one that you see played fairly regularly, whether or not she gets granted the weapons training stuff. But that buff is massive. I feel like weapons training is gonna be the new, what the new game looks like. I think I hopped on with Tails from the Cryptomancer. We talked about him last time, also Cryptomancer, but hopped on with him last week, and as soon as that buff was announced, he went out and bought a Zerial to grant that permanent buff to your non-attackers. And I think that's just
good move.
Yeah, I think so too. I think and he brought up an interesting point of just going for a level 3, because that's, she has most of her abilities there at level 4. She just gets the extra attack. But because the weapons training gets capped out at 4 damage, it didn't really make sense to go beyond that. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how the weapons training meta shakes out. And I love the way that the creative team has designed these cards that are specifically Like Lurking Puffer is a great example that is exciting. It has poison, but it's a non-attacker, so it clearly needs the weapons training buff to proc some of those poisons on its attacks.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of credit for the designs go to Call Me Tim as well, who is our lead developer on the Rebellion set. He has been spending a ton of time doing card balancing and coming up with all the stats and trying to make sure that everything fits in with and still allows a place for the older sets to be used in synergistic ways. So he has been absolutely awesome at doing all the card stats and taking a lot of the work off of Batmat's shoulders. Matt was previously the guy that did a lot of that, and I know he's been pretty happy to be able to hand that off to Call Me Tim, who has just been amazing in that role. So both him and the creative team deserve a lot of credit for coming up with such an exciting set for you all.
Well, you yourself too, Cryptomancer. You're going to be a direct beneficiary, and as I was listening to our previous episode with you, Cryptomancer, something that stuck out to me was Chaos Legion being your baby, and I'm wondering if you're looking at Rebellion thinking, is Chaos Legion set up to benefit in a really big way from these new abilities and new mechanics? Do you feel like Chaos Legion is kind of getting, I guess in hindsight, was it kind of overlooked without getting all of kind of the fanfare of these big new abilities, big new mechanics, all that sort of stuff? What is your thought, kind of reflecting on Chaos Legion with the entrance of this huge new era of Splinterlands that is Rebellion?
So in some ways, it feels like kind of a passing of the torch, so to speak. So I was the big Chaos Legion guy, and back at the time when Chaos Legion launched, the company was only just starting to expand, and there weren't a lot of people besides myself that really had the deep knowledge of the game necessary to implement a whole new card set. So Chaos Legion was a big effort at the time, and it felt like there were a lot of new abilities introduced in Chaos Legion. I was pretty happy with the way the set came out. Chaos Legion's a great set. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it personally. I love it. Say what you will about the sale of it and the number of packs in distribution. That's a different topic altogether. But Chaos Legion itself is a wonderful set. I think it came out really well. And now we kind of see the torch being passed to another set of developers. So rather than myself being in charge of it this time, it's Call Me Tim in charge of it. So the baton has kind of passed from myself to Call Me Tim. And I have less of a direct role in Rebellion this time. I have the conflicts. That's kind of my chunk of Rebellion, but I have not been involved at all with developing the new mechanics or the tactics or any of the card abilities. So I've just been purely focusing on conflicts, and Melon Man and Call Me Tim have been doing other parts of it. So I think they've been doing a really great job with it, a tremendous job. And it is good to see some of that deep knowledge of how to build card sets disseminated out more widely amongst the rest of the team. It's good because it avoids single points of failure. Like back in the day, a lot of stuff was on me, a lot of stuff was on Batmat. If something broke, there weren't a lot of other people that really knew what to do about it. There weren't a lot of people that had kind of our deep understanding of things. But now we're less reliant on single individuals. That knowledge is spread out more within the team, and there are many developers that are competent in lots of different areas of the games, so that we can have more people involved in constructing the sets and working on all these different things. Basically what we've seen is from Chaos Legion to now, our team has matured, and they've fully kind of grown into their own, so to speak, and become powerhouses in their own right. So what we're capable of doing now is much, much greater than what we were capable of doing back in the time of the Chaos Legion launch. And that's why you're seeing so many changes with Rebellion, so many radical new things that haven't been done before in the previous card sets. You're really seeing the maturity of the team being fully brought to bear on developing this new set. So we are now seeing the payoffs of all of that growth that we experienced in the last couple of years.
It's so great to hear you say that, man. Especially, you look back at the last 14 months, 2 rounds of layoffs, and all of the salt that has just been pouring in for, gosh, the better part of the last 18 months, 2 years. A leaner and meaner team, I think, is a very fair statement for kind of the state of the company of Steam Monsters, and to hear you say that, yeah, it's really refreshing and encouraging. And to your point, I love the Chaos Legion set. That was kind of my entrance to the game, and I'm going to speak to Hep here directly with his affinity for the great whale that is Bakjira. I think for a long time I've kind of earmarked that guy as being the most recession proof of all of the Chaos Legion legendary cards, and I think weapons training, this new buff is certainly going to benefit that. And by the
way, sorry, I didn't get up. I finally just got my Kulu Mindhunter, my first one ever. So I just got it the other day in like a daily rewards chest, and I was able to use it with Bakjira and give him an attack in like I think it was like one of those all melee can attack to the front rule sets. So I got to use them. So I know I'm constantly on here complaining that I have not ever been able to pull that card, and it's the one card I've wanted out of the rewards cards. The legendary is the one card I've never gotten. So yes, as of like 3 days ago, I finally got it, and I've been playing with it. So sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off there.
No. That's exactly my point. Is we've, as great as Chaos Legion has been, I think we're about to see it become a whole lot greater with the exit of Untamed. And in conjunction with things like that weapons training buff, all of a sudden Bakjira can trample with or without the Kulu Mastermind or Mindhunter Master, whatever he is, the weapons trainer,
Mastermind? Yeah,
something like that. But
I've only had it for a couple of days, so I can't be expected to have memorized what it's actually called. Even though I pined for it for like 6 months
year
now. Yeah. How long have the rewards card sets been out?
January, I think.
I'm glad you finally got that card. But that illustrates a perfect point that I also want to make, which is that we do our best to maintain the relevance of the older card sets as new ones are introduced. So we don't want to just put the older sets out to pasture and be like, oh, well, you're not going to use these anymore. Now here's all these shiny new cards for you to use instead. We keep the older sets relevant, so that even though the new cards have lots of new abilities and stuff, they can be used synergistically with the old cards, and you can keep finding ways to use the old cards in ways that maybe you didn't imagine were possible before. So the new abilities, new rule sets, the constantly evolving meta, it unlocks a lot of new possibilities to breathe fresh life into some of the older cards. And that's one of the things that I've always enjoyed myself about Splinterlands. Like when I battle, I can still trot out my alpha gold dragon, and he can still be a kick-ass card on the battlefield. So I still use my alphas, even though it's the oldest card set there is.
Nice. We've seen some of the new abilities. We've seen some of the tactics. Summoners having the tactics ability. Is there anything in Rebellion that we don't know about yet? Is there anything that's kind of going to be a surprise, either an ability we haven't seen or something about the gameplay of these cards that's going to be a little bit different from what we've come to expect?
I think the surprises are just going to be seeing the ways that people come up with to use these cards going forward. So now that Rebellion is on the Mav server, all the cards, you can see all the cards, all the abilities are out there. So there's no big surprises anymore in terms of mechanics. That's all been revealed.
I don't
But
know if there's
the
anything like
airdrop
holding back for
cards,
the airdrop cards or anything like that.
yeah, the conflicts airdrop cards have not been revealed yet. So you may see some surprises coming with those. Um, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, but as far as actual mechanics and abilities, I think we've seen all of that that's going to be there until probably the next expansion set comes along. We'll see what new stuff that introduces. The conflicts airdrop cards, those are going to be cards that you want to have, and when you see those, um, you will think, oh, I gotta participate in conflicts. I gotta get these cards. They're gonna be good ones.
So you said earlier that there's going to be 9 conflict cards. So that's the 6 legendary summoners plus 3 additional that have already been determined. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Um, the first conflicts card, I've actually already seen the stats for it in the artwork. I'm not going to reveal it just yet, but it's a pretty awesome one. We're going to start things out with a bang. Let me put it that way.
Can you give us the splinter at least for the first card?
Not yet.
Worth a shot.
How about so nine airdrops over the course of 12 months, or maybe my timing is off there, but the airdrop dates should be predetermined for this set. Is that correct?
Yes. So it's going to be a bit nicer than in the past. Like in the past, we waited to hit a pack milestone, and then even once that pack milestone is hit, the airdrop hasn't released immediately. It's required manual action on our part to actually release the card and trigger the airdrop. And some people have been a bit disgruntled about that. They're like, oh man, I want to see this thing drop as soon as we hit that milestone. Why do you guys have to actually do something else to get it ready? So there's been some annoyed grumblings from some people about that. So with conflicts, it's going to work a little bit differently. With conflicts, there's no more pack milestone. Each conflict event will end on a predetermined date, and the airdrop will be available immediately after it ends. And you can expect these to be roughly a month in duration. The first couple of them might be a little bit more than a month, but we're going to try to keep them on a roughly monthly schedule until all 9 of them have been completed. And you'll be able to see on the conflict screen, there will be a countdown to the end of the conflict. So you know exactly when it ends and exactly when the airdrop card becomes claimable. And I expect there's going to be a lot of excitement towards the end of each conflict because it is basically a direct competition between all of the other players that are staking cards and staking packs for these conflicts. The amount you stake in proportion to everybody else is going to determine how many chances you have to get a fixed number of these cards. So, like, say, the first conflict, for example, we haven't decided exactly how many cards are going to be available to be airdropped, but say that it's something like 4,000. So you might have a whole bunch of people competing for their share of these 4,000 cards. There's not going to be any more or any less. There's just going to be 4,000 airdropped, and you have to get as many of those as you can relative to everyone else. So towards the end of the conflict, we might see a lot of action with people trying to stake more stuff, trying to get their contribution numbers up just a little bit higher relative to everyone else so they can squeak out a few more cards. So that's going to be exciting, and it's a competitive aspect that I'm really looking forward to. We're going to have leaderboards so that you can look at the leaderboard and you can see how well you're doing relative to everyone else. and you'll be able to see who the top conflict contributors are, so you know what you're up against. So that's also very different than the way we've done airdrops in the past, having these leaderboards, and that's going to make it more fun and more exciting for people as well.
So is there an advantage to, so for airdrop or conflict number 1 versus conflict number 9, for example, is there an advantage to having, maintained that stake throughout the entire time period? Or is there a, kind of a clean cutoff and hard reset immediately following each conflict?
There's no reset after each conflict. Well, I mean, there is kind of a reset in the sense that your contribution points get reset to 0, but there's no staking reset. So all of the cards that you have staked for the first conflict will carry on to the second conflict and all the subsequent conflicts. So whatever you stake, you can just leave it staked for all 9 conflicts, and it will contribute to all of them. So the earlier you stake stuff, the better, because you will accumulate these points slowly over time. The amount you have staked will determine how many contribution points you make per hour. So you don't want to stake for just a couple days and then unstake and forget about it. The longer you leave stuff staked, the better it will be in terms of accumulating points. So I stake early, stake often is how I would put it. Get in at the beginning, keep your stuff staked, and add to it over time whenever you acquire new cards and more packs.
The wagons are going to be for purchase with, is it just vouchers only, or is it vouchers and something else?
The wagons are going to be exclusively purchased with vouchers only, and it will be 10 vouchers per wagon. That's what we're looking at right now. It's possible that could change before release, but right now, 10 vouchers per wagon. I'll stick with you as well. So you don't have to repurchase those for every conflict. You get one of those, and then it's just permanently soul bound to your account, and you can use it in all the conflicts going forward.
And with previous airdrops, there was kind of a scaling pack purchase requirement in order to qualify for each subsequent airdrop. Is there something similar involved with the conflicts, or is it kind of assumed that there's going to be natural kind of jockeying for position as a result of the conflict points that are provided for staking?
So there's not going to be any minimum guarantees, if that's what you had in mind. But there will be a minimum amount of contribution points that you need to get in order to have a chance at getting an airdrop card. So the way it will work is you stake your packs, you stake your cards, you get a certain number of points per hour. And every time you accumulate 50,000 points, you will get one chance at getting an airdrop card. So you accumulate 50,000, you've got one chance. You accumulate another 50,000, and you got 2 chances. So every 50,000 points, you get another chance. So let's say by the end of the conflict, you have accumulated 10 chances of getting airdrop cards. Each of those chances is kind of like a lottery ticket. Maybe you'll get a card, maybe you won't. So 10 chances does not mean that you're guaranteed to get 10 cards. It means you could get up to 10 cards if you're really, really super lucky, or you might get 1 card, or you might get 5, or you might get none. So you will have a number of chances of getting cards, and the exact percentage chance, the odds of each of those being a winning lottery ticket depends on how many chances everybody else has accumulated. So just to give a really simple example, say, for example, that you have 50 airdrop chances, and everybody else in total, all the players that participated in conflicts, have 100 chances in total split between everybody. If you have 50, and there's 100 total, that means for every lottery ticket, you have a 50% chance of getting a card. So now let's say you have the same 50 chances, but say there's 1,000 chances total that everybody else has gotten. Then your odds of getting a card have gone way down. So when the conflict first starts, not many people will have airdrop chances, and so your probability of getting a card will be very high. But as the conflict goes on and approaches its end, more and more of these airdrop chances will be there. And so your odds of getting a card will go down towards the end. So there are not going to be fixed odds like there were for all the previous airdrop cards. It's going to depend entirely on how much everybody has contributed and how many cards are part of the fixed pool of cards that are going to be airdropped to everybody.
Interesting.
It's
So
going to
you
be
could be,
very competitive compared to previous airdrops.
yeah, I mean, you could be, maybe you're like on the number one person on the leaderboard with these conflict points, and could, potentially, if you're really, really, really unlucky, right? Theoretically, you could get no cards or one card or only two cards.
Yes, that's right. I mean,
Yeah.
the odds are not great.
Odds
of
are
that.
very, yeah. But yeah, still, so that's interesting.
Theoretically, yeah.
So what happens? Are the difference of the cards? So if there's 1,000 chances, there's 4,000 cards that have been minted for the airdrop, or scheduled to be minted for the airdrop. If a lot of people strike out and we only get maybe 500 cards going to contributing players, is the difference burned before it's or just scrapped from being minted, or how does that work?
So if there are fewer airdrop chances than there are actual cards to hand out, in that case, then it's guaranteed you'll get one card per airdrop chance that you have, and anything left over would just not be distributed. But I think that's pretty unlikely. There's going to be well, let's say for example that you have I don't know, 6,000 players contributing to conflicts. If you have a decent amount of cards staked, you could be earning one airdrop chance per day, or even multiple airdrop chances per day. So that means that the total number of airdrop chances could be in the tens of thousands very easily, or even in the hundreds of thousands. Um, I mean, heck, think of the biggest whales. They're going to be getting a lot of airdrop chances. So the odds of the airdrop chances being smaller than the number of cards being distributed, I'd be very surprised if that happens. So it's almost certain, I would say, that if we have 4,000 airdrop cards to be distributed, then all 4,000 of those are going to be distributed. I'd be very surprised if we get another outcome.
Are the points you get, are they going to be based on, like gold foil is going to be higher, cards rarities, or, legendaries will be worth more than commons and things like that?
So it's for accumulating these airdrop chances, it doesn't really matter what type of card it is, common, rare, legendary. I think the type of card is going to dictate how many of those cards we want to airdrop. Like, for example, if an airdrop card is legendary, then maybe we only have 4,000 of those to distribute in total. If an airdrop card is common, then maybe we're going to distribute 100,000 of them. So that will depend on the rarity, certainly, how many of them we want to be in circulation initially. But as far as accumulating airdrop chances, no, that's just going to be to depend purely on how much stuff you have staked. And as far as getting gold foil versus regular foil, we have a really interesting new mechanic for that. So when you go to claim your cards, like previously in previous airdrops, you just hit the claim button and does a random roll of the dice, and you get a certain number of regular cards, certain number of gold cards, and you're like, woohoo, maybe I got 1 or 2 golds. So in the new mechanic, there's still going to be a claim button that you hit, and there's still going to be random rolls to determine the gold foils, but you have a way to increase your odds. So by default, you're going to have a 2% chance per airdrop card of it being gold foil, but you can spend vouchers to double that chance from 2% to 4%, increase your odds of getting a gold foil, and you can decide to do that for however many cards you want. So let's say you hit the claim button and the system tells you got 10 airdrop cards. All right, cool. But then the system tells you, okay, now we're going to do a roll to determine how many of those are gold foils. How many vouchers do you want to spend? And there will be a set amount of vouchers that you have to spend per card. I don't know exactly what the number is going to be yet. We're still thinking about that. But for the sake of argument, say that it's, I don't know, 5 vouchers per card or something. So you say, okay, I'm going to spend 25 vouchers and increase my chances for 5 of my 10 cards. And then you hit the button. It sends your vouchers and it tells you how many gold foil cards you got. So it's going to be kind of a 2-step claim process. You hit the claim button, you see how many cards you get, and then you say how many vouchers you want to spend, and you get to see how many gold foil cards you get.
Are those vouchers then burned, or is that,
Those vouchers all get burned, yes. Okay. So it's another voucher burn mechanic. So we have 2 new ways of spending vouchers introduced with conflicts. You'll spend vouchers to get battle wagons, and you'll spend vouchers to increase your chances of gold foil airdrops. And all of those vouchers will be burned.
Wow. Well, I just bought another slew of vouchers. I'm very happy to report that I feel like it was a safe investment based on this information.
I'd say so. Going forward, we want to find as many ways as we can to spend vouchers. So I'm really happy that with Rebellion, we've added so many new syncs for vouchers. And I think that trend is going to continue. We'll find ways to get them used on land in the future and all sorts of things.
Yeah, cool. So let's talk about so thinking back to the Chaos Legion airdrops, if memory serves, there were, a number of instances where we were still kind of hashing out the final abilities and details of the legendary summoners that, had been procured as part of the initial pack purchase process, kind of at the last minute. Is that going to be changing moving forward, or is the expectation that all of these things are going to be determined, relatively soon now, and versus waiting until the airdrop is nigh?
Well, we're still going to see kind of a process of designing the cards over time, because the top leaderboard winners that get to design the cards, they all have to be contacted, and they have to be walked through the design process with creative. So that doesn't happen instantly. That's still going to take some time. But I think we definitely do want to get ahead of things more than we have done in the past. A lot of times in the past, we've been scrambling to come up with the airdrop cards, like literally the week before. It's been like, okay, guys, we got 7 days till we hit that pack milestone. What are we going to do about the airdrop card? I might get the stats like a few days before and then be scrambling to put the card together before we pass the milestone. So I don't think we don't want to cut things quite that close again going forwards. So like I mentioned earlier, one of the big new things with conflicts is that the conflicts will end on predetermined dates, and the airdrop cards will be immediately claimable as soon as we hit that end date. So that does necessitate a bit more forward planning than we've done in the past. At the very least, we need to have the card fully ready to go before the conflict for that card starts. Because once the conflict starts, you're going to be able to see the information about the card and see what kind of airdrop you're working towards for that particular month. So we do need to have them ready in plenty of time before the conflict actually begins. Pretty happy about that myself. I personally don't like scrambling at the last minute, so this will force us to keep things a little bit more organized.
It's a complete shift from the eras of the past, and something else I want to circle back to that you just mentioned. I'm assuming it's not a hypothetical, but it's a reality in that we could potentially have airdrop cards that are not strictly legendary. Is that something that is that public knowledge, or are you just sort of pulling ideas out as hypotheticals?
I'd say it's a hypothetical for now. I don't know for a fact that there's going to be airdrop cards that are not legendary. Maybe they will all be legendary, but that possibility certainly exists. So it's something that we could do if we wanted to. And I myself do not know what the creative's plans are fully for all 9 of the cards. I only know about the first one so far. So we will see what happens, but the system has been designed to be flexible enough that we could have airdrops of different rarities if we want to.
Will we see something like we saw with the pre-sale cards, where it was actually 2 cards instead of 1 you could get? Is that, or is it no? We're going to be set that it's just going to be these 9 cards.
It's definitely just going to be 1 card per airdrop.
Okay.
So having 2 at once like that's kind of a special thing that was just done for the Rebellion pre-sale.
And we heard Yaba, gosh, I guess the better part of a month ago at this point, mention that he was looking to offer a greater degree of I guess value to the legendary summoners than what was allowed for Chaos Legion. So I think back to our last conversation, and you had talked about, you know, the formula that exists to defining, you know, mana cost and stats and abilities and all this sort of stuff has to fit within a certain threshold as dictated by the card's rarity. Is that being adjusted for these Rebellion legendary airdrops to accommodate, you know, maybe a more OP summoner than what we saw in Chaos Legion?
That sort of formula is still being used for balancing. I know Call Me Tim has been looking at that a lot and figuring out how to keep all the cards from becoming too overpowered. Because we definitely don't want to fall into the trap of making things too op and having people feel like there's too much power creep between sets. So that sort of formulaic balancing is definitely very much still in play. And the ways you might see that manifest in particular is with higher mana costs. So you'll notice that a lot of the Rebellion cards are very high mana cards compared to what we've seen in the past. I will let you in on a little tease for the first Conflicts airdrop card, and I will say that it is a 16 mana card.
Whoa!
So,
Whoa!
Yeah,
that's what's the highest ever been before? 12 is there, or 14? What's the
Agor's 15,
15,
I think.
Okay,
yeah. So it is a beast of a card, and that very high mana cost definitely offsets some of the things that it can do. So you'll get a very powerful card, but it has very high mana. So you're not going to be using it in low mana rule sets. There will be certain limited situations that would be good to use it in. So that's one of the biggest balancing aspects. We add more cool stuff to cards. That also makes the mana go up.
Wow.
So I know Call Me Tim has been very, very careful about balancing. He's gone through several iterations of designs before we made anything public. So Rebellion has already been in internal testing for months. he's been working on. Oh, it's gone through I don't know how many iterations of stats changes already before anybody saw any of the new cards outside the company. So that's I think probably one of the most important and also trickiest considerations when designing a new card set.
Think that the summoners, though, do you think that having that new phase, is that going to be a complete game changer? Do you think that's going to be make them more powerful than the Chaos Legion summoners, having the tactics phase?
It certainly introduces a lot of new possibilities, so it is definitely a game changer. But I don't think it necessarily makes them more powerful than Chaos Legion summoners. I think there are times when you might want to use the new summoners, and times when it's still better to use the old summoners. And I think Yabatmat has alluded to this a couple times in various town halls. Like, for example, say that you're in a low mana match and you have a limited selection of cards to draw from. That's when you might want to use one of the new dual element summoners that opens up more possibilities for cards to choose. But if you're playing in a higher mana match, then maybe you want to use one of the older summoners that has a very low mana cost, like one of those 2 mana beta summoners, for instance, because you've already got plenty of possibilities of card choices to draw from, and you'd rather have more mana available to spend on cards. So everything is very situational because of the changing rule sets and mana caps for the battles. There will be some times when, yeah, you really want to go hard on those new tactics cards, and other times where you might think, oh, maybe it makes more sense to use one of these other summoners instead. Like about the game, the different the mix-ups and all the possibilities that force you to have to make those kind of decisions. There's no card that you're going to want to use for every single match, and that's a good thing. We wouldn't want that.
Yeah, kudos to the team. We've already seen, for a long time, Kitty was that card. I think we started to see that shift a little bit with Rift Watchers and the Soulbound cards. But with cards like that and Jotun and Llama, if you see a 14 mana poison match and Earth is on the table, you better guarantee you're seeing Llama with Pellicor Mercenary. I don't think that we're going to have any of those types of shoe-in wins moving forward, which is something I'm certainly excited about. And you were talking earlier about the balancing act of bringing value to kind of previously undervalued cards, and I as I've kind of scrolled through some of the Rebellion cards, I can't help but think a lot of these Rift Watchers summoners are going to be great beneficiaries. Ones that we very seldom see, like Dispa and Aquatis being able to leverage that backfire. It feels like that was a big play from Call Me Tim is offering value to these Rift Watchers summoners, for example, as a primary beneficiary of the skill sets and abilities that are coming into play. And I think that was going to be helped, number one, by Kitty exiting. Obviously there's no such thing as backfire versus Kitty. There's no such thing as phase versus Kitty. But all of a sudden, it's exciting to think about what's going to happen with the meta with the introduction of all these new abilities and ability kits that are coming into the meta of Modern.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to seeing how things get shaken up, and I know that's definitely been a big design decision that Call Me Tim has been keeping in mind. He wants to make sure that some of these cards that haven't gotten used so often necessarily have a role to play. They have their places going forward, and that's like the example that I brought up earlier of having Ambush paired with Recharge. Suddenly, you've got a whole new way to make use of these recharge cards. It's a whole new ball game.
Yeah, I know you shared with us last time, and I know your stamp is permanently on the game in the form of the legendary death summoner Cryptomancer. So your affinity for death is shared here at the People's Guild. Both Hep and I have a soft spot in our hearts for Team Death. I felt like the corrosive ward ability. It's interesting. It feels pretty niche. There is a lot of like repair armor driven teams that get rolled out. But it feels like it was kind of a missed opportunity to buff Cripple. I'm thinking about my boy Grandpa Dallin on Death Team, and I'm wondering if he's ever going to see his day at the top of the meta. And it felt like Cripple, kind of from a lore perspective, logical perspective, Cripple could also equally apply to armor. Is there anything that's kind of popped out in your head as far as Dallin? Is he going to be a bit? Is there going to be any sort of benefit coming to Team Cripple on Grandpa Dallin's side of the table?
Well, I mean, we got to save some things for future sets, right? There's got to be something after Rebellion.
2025.
I'm sure that
Dallin.
things that may have been missed or overlooked for Rebellion, those are chances that we can take later in follow-up sets. And yeah, I certainly hope my Death Boys get lots of love. I love the artwork on the new cards, the new Death cards especially, so I'm going to be collecting all of those. Corrosive Ward is a cool ability. You know what that puts me in mind of? That makes me think of the movie Aliens. The aliens have their acid blood, so when the Space Marines kill them, the acid blood kind of drips through the decks and the whole plating and messes up their armor and everything. That's exactly what Corrosive Ward is like. So I always mentally think of that as the aliens ability, the acid blood.
The acid blood, nice. Is there being death aficionados here? Personally, I was super excited to see, like the Death Water Summoner, the Death Fire Summoner. There's I think those are the only two that I've seen thus far. I would guess that we'll likely see a Death Life Summoner, given Zuriel has already kind of bridged that gap between death and life. Is there a particular element that you're looking most forward to pairing with death?
I haven't really thought about it much. I'm so busy developing the game, and I haven't really had much time to actually play it and think of all these different strategies myself. So, yeah, I'm going to have to think about that a bit. I think I'm going to be discovering a lot of the strategies along with you guys as we begin playing and see how the set actually unfolds. It's going to be part of the fun for sure.
Oh, yeah. How about you, Hep?
I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe, you think water because there's just that natural affinity for speed that both of them share. That could be good. Yeah, it's tough to say. I don't know. What do you think, Jangles? Is there any cards you particularly want to play with? Any other Splinter card you particularly want to play with your Death deck?
Fire is fun. I think the speed is definitely there with the Countess, for example, would be a great addition to Team Death. But the water death mashup, just having a cleanse and a heal on death, I think changes everything. So that should certainly be a lot of fun. Yeah.
It's going to take some time to really get used to all the different possibilities. Like, we're so used to thinking in terms of a single element. Suddenly you have two elements to deal with. It's like, whoa. So I think it's going to take a lot of experimentation and just trying things out and discovering over time what works well together. So it's not like from day one you're suddenly going to be an expert in what elements to use. It's going to take a lot of fiddling around with and trying out new things and just seeing how it goes. It's part of the joy of exploration, of discovering the full power of this new set.
Oh yeah. It's since the introduction of Modern and Wild, we've had a pretty consistent meta for the better part of the last, year and a half at this point, I guess, is when Modern and Wild came out. Yeah, it's a brave new world with Rebellion coming in and Untamed exiting. I think a lot of folks are just generally excited for that aspect of Untamed leaving. And it's only amplified by the fact that we're getting a whole new set of cards to kind of go along with that. So looking, go ahead, Cryptomancer.
I was going to say, since you mentioned Untamed rotating out of Modern, this might be a good time to bring up Brawl Phrase as well, because a lot of people have been wondering what's going to happen to the Brawls. Are Brawl Phrase also going to start seeing Rebellion introduced? Is Untamed going to rotate out of Modern as well for Brawls? And it's been a very long time since we've had any changes to the phrase. And a lot of people have been wondering both about that and about, well, with all these older cards going to land, how is that going to impact some of the things like gold foil phrase in Brawls? So I am very happy to say that we are going to be changing up the Brawl phrase very soon. In fact, I already have a draft announcement post written about that, and I'm hoping that Batman will publish it this week, giving all of the details on how phrase are going to be changing. And I will say that we are currently planning to update Brawl phrase on Friday, December 8th. That's going to be the day that they change, a few days after the main Rebellion launch. So on the day that Rebellion launches, the phrase won't change right away because that's in the middle of an ongoing Brawl cycle. And we can't change these things until a Brawl cycle is finished. We can't just change them right in the middle of an ongoing Brawl. So Friday, December 8th, that's going to be the first Brawl results stage after the Rebellion launch. And that's when the phrase are going to change. So from the very next Brawl that starts on Saturday the 9th, that's when the updated phrase are going to take effect. And you'll see in the announcement post in the exact details of all the changes we're going to make. But what it basically boils down to is we're going to be rotating Untamed out of all the Modern phrase, and Rebellion is going to be rotating in. And a lot of the Chaos Legion only phrase are going to be changing to Rebellion only. And we're making some adjustments to the Alpha Beta phrase as well. So Alpha Betas are going to be changing to Alpha Beta plus Untamed. And there's also a few other minor adjustments that will make some of those more difficult phrase a little bit more forgiving, more understanding of the fact that some of those older cards are going to be going to land. So I think people will be happy to see the changes we've come up with. And yeah, it's going to be great. I'm looking forward to seeing that go into effect as well.
Was there any thought of just cutting those Alpha Beta phrase? I know they're great for the people who have been around for a while, but the bane of a lot of guilds' existence who, like mine, who maybe don't have any of those OGs in them, and they're tough even to be able to kind of rent cards and play. Was there any consideration to that, or do you guys kind of think you'll always have those cards be in a Brawl phrase somewhere?
We thought about it, but we thought there's still value in having support for those. So you should still be able to use the older cards if you want. We don't want to completely remove the utility for them and say that they're only useful on land. They're definitely still useful in Brawls as well. And if you have those available for brawling, that's going to make you a very valuable guild member. But we know that not everybody has those cards. They're very limited, very hard to get, not easy to rent. So that's the reason why we're also introducing Untamed into those phrase. So it'll be Alpha, Beta, and Untamed. So that will make them a little bit more accessible to people, as it's easier to get those Untamed cards.
Nice. Man, the hits just keep on coming. We're in the next 10 days, it's going to be a completely different world that we're looking into when we open up Splinterlands.
Oh gosh, if you think about it, we've got 3 huge releases coming back to back to back, week after week after week. So tomorrow we've got Land dropping. A week later, December 5th, Rebellion launches. 3 days after that, December 8th, Brawl phrase change. The next week, December 12th, conflicts get released and the first conflict event begins. So it's just bam, 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 one thing right after the other here. We have kind of the fates are aligned, the planets are all lined up, and everything is going out kind of all around the same time here. So this is kind of the culmination of the entire year's work, if you will. It's going to be a crazy next couple of weeks for sure.
And
Christmas
sprinkle
has
in
come
the
early.
yeah, no kidding, and sprinkle in the 2.0 white paper for good measure.
Oh yeah, let's not forget about that.
Yeah. So let's talk what's next. So we've heard lots about, throughout 2024. Both Aggie and Matt have kind of alluded to, we're focused on showing up the economy. We're focused on 1.5. We're focused on Rebellion, and beyond that is when UX UI is kind of set for a bit of an overhaul and some polishing up. Is that, are you able to shed some light on, where are your efforts going to be focused as a dev on Team Steam Monsters, and how about the greater team? Is that set to see its day in the focus of the development team over on the team?
So future plans are still a little bit fuzzy at this point in time. We've been concentrating mainly on just getting through Land and Rebellion launch, and then seeing where things go from there. So it's not really crystal clear who's going to be working on what. We have to do some planning to figure these things out before the new year. But I'd say for myself, it's likely that I'll get some time to focus on guilds, because there's still a whole lot of guild stuff that we want to do that we had to kind of push back. Like we had the guild power uh, release earlier this year, and that was kind of the beginning of how we wanted to overhaul guilds. But we also want to add a bunch of new buildings and new benefits from those buildings. And we want to find some way to tie guilds into Land more. So there's some direct links between those projects, and probably also overhaul guild ratings and how guilds are ranked relative to other guilds in terms of performance. So there's a lot of things we can do with guilds. That's kind of an area of the game that's been a little bit neglected up to this point. Um, and I implemented a lot of the guild stuff myself. I created the entire brawling system and whatnot. So I imagine that I'll probably be heavily involved in a lot of the guild updates that may come next year. And of course, I'll still be involved with conflicts as well when we start building that out more. Um, as far as other team members, it's hard to say. Farpatrat, of course, is going to stay on Land. So he's going to be plugging away at a lot of the 2.0 features that are on the way. And there's also a lot we want to do around the new player experience, making it easier to ease people into the game and get them up and running and comfortable with all of the different game systems. So exact plans for that still need to be firmed up. So we'll have to see how it plays out. It's a little bit nebulous at this point, but we'll see how it goes.
Are you able to kind of share some thoughts? We've heard maybe a little bit of high level speculation about the types of buildings that could or could not be introduced into guilds. Are you able to kind of share some insights in terms of what you would like to accomplish with, kind of a guild overhaul?
So basically, we want some way for people to be able to keep contributing crowns and keep contributing guild power to buildings once they've maxed everything out. So right now, once you max out all your buildings, it's like, okay, what do you do there? What do you do with any extra crowns that you have left over? And we haven't gotten to that point yet. I don't think there's any guild that's totally maxed every single building, but there are a few of the top guilds that are kind of getting close to that point. So that's one design objective. We want to make sure that once you've maxed out your buildings, you still have something else to do. So there's going to be some new buildings, and one of them, an idea that we were toying with, is a type of vault. And this would be a building that you can only contribute to once you have finished maxing out all the other buildings. So from that point forward, your crowns and your guild power go into this vault building, and you can upgrade that unlimited as much as you want. And you get some kind of bonuses or perks for doing so. And the exact nature of that has not been fully worked out. But that's one thing we were toying with. Another idea for a specific type of building is something that gives you bonuses relating to land or bonuses relating to crown production. So like boost your crowns won by 10% every time you brawl or something like that. So a crown boost building. And we were also playing with ideas of different ways of contributing to these buildings. So instead of just guild power and crowns, maybe you also have to stake stuff on the buildings, like stake vouchers on a building to level it up, or stake cards, stake packs. So we want to extend the staking mechanics that we built for land and use them in other various ways. And we've already seen a second use for staking mechanics in conflicts. So we'll have land staking and we'll have conflict staking. Eventually, we might have guild building staking. But I'd emphasize that all of these are just very early concepts. No code has been written for any of this. No creative designs or artwork have been done for any of this. It's just purely ideas that we've been throwing around in a very early planning phase right now. So everything that I'm talking about, it could all change. It could all look completely different by the time we actually have a real coherent design put together. So I just want to emphasize that. Take my words with a grain of salt. Everything that I'm saying could end up being completely different a year from now or whenever we actually release it. But what is certain is that we definitely want to do more with guilds and more with guild buildings and find some way to tie that in with the land expansion.
Nice. Yeah, I think we're all kind of used to knowing that things can and will change at this point. So, but it's good. Always good to put the disclaimer out there.
Yep. It should go without saying, but it is good to just say that, especially for things that are very nebulous and don't actually have firm plans yet.
Cool. So what about we've heard lots of talk around kind of the end of the current run of Soulbound reward cards. We've seen some proposals come in to kind of finalize what is the price to unlock these things. It feels like this run is probably coming to an end sooner than later. We're about 2 months off from having the current run be available in rewards chests for a year at that point. Is there any talk around, or has the design team, creative team come up with the next batch of reward cards? And obviously it would be the first of the Rebellion era cards.
I haven't seen any talk of it myself internally. I'm not really privy to the kinds of discussions the creative team has amongst themselves or the planning that they do. As far as I know, there hasn't been a whole lot of thought about it yet. I'm sure creative probably has some ideas for what they want to do there, and maybe they're already working on artwork. I don't know, but I do kind of also share the feeling that it's getting to be close to time to roll out some new reward cards. The Soulbound cards they have been out there for quite a long time, as you've said. So it's getting to be about time. But right now, I think everybody is concentrating on Rebellion, concentrating on land. So what comes after that, we haven't worried about it too much just yet. But I would not be surprised if we see new reward cards sometime next year.
Hopefully, I'll be able to get a couple more of those Kulu masterminds before then.
I don't
My
have
average of one per year at this point is not
a
looking good for me to get to my gold level 6 BCX before then.
Yeah, I don't get to play so often since I'm busy developing. So I don't have hardly any of the reward cards. I certainly don't have any of them maxed, not even close to maxed. So I'm really looking forward to having them unlocked so that I can start buying some of these things off the market.
Yeah.
They're awesome cards, and I just feel so jealous whenever I play a match and I see people using them against me, and I'm like, oh man, I wish I could go buy that card.
I know it stinks that you
So I'm like,
you
yeah,
get beat by this lineup, and it's just like, man, this guy just got luckier in his chest than I did. I can't even play that lineup.
yeah. So from my personal point of view, I'm like, okay, hurry up with the unlocking proposals already. Let's get this done, get them unlocked. I want to go buy some of these for myself.
Yeah, so with a new batch of cards in mind, the Gladius cards are one that have been, maybe you can tell us, they were definitely available by the time I came into play. So I'm guessing that this current batch of Gladius cards has been around for 2+ years at this point. Has there been talk around what's next for Gladius cards? And I think there was a question in not too many town halls ago around kind of identifying the era of our current Gladius card set as being either Chaos Legion or is it independent of Chaos Legion? Are you able to kind of fill in some questions for folks curious about what is the future of Gladius cards?
So the Gladius cards have been around since the very beginning when Brawls first launched, and they have not been changed or added to since then. Um, from the beginning, they are always designed to be kind of op cards, cards that we wouldn't want to see a lot of in regular ranked play. They were all given that bloodlust ability. That was kind of their special thing. And over time, we have seen things like the rule set that allows you to use them in ranked play in some forms of tournaments. And so we are starting to slowly see them bleed over into other forms of gameplay. Um, which I think is fine since they're still limited. You can't like fill an entire team with Gladius cards, and I also think it's fine that we haven't been introducing any new ones. That we've been keeping them the same for so long, simply because it takes a long time to accumulate Gladius cards. Um, Unless you're one of the top guilds. If you're just like an average guild, you earn maybe, if you're lucky, like one Gladius pack per brawl. So to get even mid-level Gladius cards takes a very long time. And um, I would like to see new cards introduced eventually. New gladiators would be nice just to keep it fresh every now and then. But there's not been any talk of introducing new Gladius cards anytime soon. Eventually, I think, yeah, we'll probably have another set of them, but I can't say when that would be. It's certainly not anything like a top priority, given all the other things that we want to work on next year. So don't hold your breath for that. As far as where they fit, what their era is, whether they're modern or wild, they're kind of special. They exist outside. They're kind of their own set. They're their own gladiator set. They don't belong to any of the other card sets. They have their own special frames that are distinct. Um, they are basically always modern cards because anytime you have a brawl, regardless of any other set restrictions, you can always use gladiator cards. So you can still use them regardless of whether you're in a modern fight or a wild fight. So I wouldn't really think of them in terms of modern or wild. They're separate. If you absolutely have to think of it that way, I would classify them as always being modern. And could that change in the future? Yeah, sure, maybe anything can change in the future, but I really don't see anything happening around gladiator cards anytime soon. Um, So keep accumulating them, keep leveling them up, and yeah, eventually there'll be new ones, but not in the near term.
Yeah, I think after a couple years, I'm at basically I have almost like a full set. I think I have a full set at this point, but they're all pretty much at silver, like silver level. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely slow.
And brawls were designed that way intentionally. It's supposed to take years and years to really move up the ranks and accumulate all of them. Brawls are a long game for sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely been accomplished. Yeah, like Hep said, it's playing for the better part of 2 years. I'm pumped at this point if I can get my rares to level 6. That feels like a major accomplishment. But I have started to see, I think Summoner's Tribe is one. Bulldog and Jacek have both kind of tweeted out that they've maxed out their first Gladius card, which is just mind-boggling to me. Those commons getting 400 BCX, that's a serious chore.
Yeah,
that's
that is wild. Huh?
that is a lot of brawls. Yeah. All right. Well, Cryptomancer,
max them out, you can still burn them for DEC. So there is that. If you have.
I actually did just burn, since you mentioned that. I had a gold foil, the gold foil legendary from Life, and I opted to burn her for 50k DEC maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago. I almost never played her. I had a higher level regular foil anyways. I fortunately have not been requested to do the gold foil brawls or anything like that. So she was just kind of sitting idly by, and with DEC flirting at peg, it felt like an easy call to burn her.
Yeah, or you could use that DEC to stake on land. Give yourself another plot's worth of cards you can put up there.
Bingo. Yeah. So Cryptomancer, we know that you've kind of talked about I want to shift gears here and talk about Cryptomancer the person for a little bit, if you're comfortable with it. You've talked about your farm, your real life land plots in Malaysia. You have any plans? I know Chinese New Year's coming up. I'm assuming, I think back to the last couple of times you've taken a big vacation down there. What's happening with the real life farm plots down in Malaysia, man? How's things going?
Yeah, it's funny you should mention it. Actually, I am planning on taking another trip to Malaysia over the Christmas and New Year's period. So we're going to be going over there for a few weeks. We try to go like once or twice a year, just to keep an eye on the land that we have over there and check in on how it's being managed and whatnot. My wife has lots of friends and family and ties to Malaysia. So she's always wanted to kind of see what it's like to celebrate Christmas and New Year's over there. So we figured, this is going to be the year that we finally do that. So after the big conflicts release, a few days after that, we're going to be hopping on a plane, heading over there and spending a sunny Christmas and New Year's. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be a good bit of downtime after all the intensity of these releases coming up. And
nice,
that's
sure
a beautiful
well deserved, well earned.
Yeah, we really enjoy our time over there. Lovely people, lovely land and scenery. They have the most amazing sunsets. Oh, wow. Sitting on the beach at night, watching the sunset, it's really something.
Nice. Is there any special, this is our thing now, we ask everybody about the special local food. Is there any special local Malaysian food that you really looking forward to getting once you're there?
Let's see. Well, my wife really likes durian. She's big on that. And I really like, there's something called roti chinai, which I enjoy. It's kind of like a flat sort of pancake pastry, sort of, a bit crunchy, and you dip it in some spicy curry sauce. Very tasty, roti chinai.
Nice.
Yeah, the Malay food. Anytime I've had it, it's been surprisingly spicy. And it's funny that you bring up the food. As I was listening back to the previous episode, Cryptomancer, I asked you, at that point we were still speculating about Splinterfest 2023, and I think the question was something along the lines of, once everybody arrives in Japan, where would be the restaurant that you would take everybody to celebrate? And your response was a Mexican food restaurant in Tokyo, which is pretty hilarious, man.
Oh, there was a great Mexican place that I tried just a little while ago, down by the shores of Lake Yamanaka around Mount Fuji. There's this place. What is it called? I forget the name of it, but there's a Japanese guy that spent a couple years living in Mexico, and he was actually featured on CNN's travel section, and he learned how to make Mexican street food and tacos while he was over there, and just absolutely fell in love with the food. So he brought his love of Mexican food back to Japan with him and opened up a taco stand on the shores of Lake Yamanaka, serving authentic Mexican-style street tacos. And so I just had to go and check it out and see what it was like. And it was good stuff. Very different from the kind of tacos I've had before, which I think are more kind of westernized, or Americanized, I guess you could say, since Mexico is a Western country. Americanized tacos. So these felt very different and more like what you might actually get from Mexico.
Cool. So you casually mentioned that your wife is a fan of durian. I'm assuming that means Cryptomancer is not a fan of durian.
No, I can't stand this stuff. I'm used to the smell of it. The smell of it doesn't bother me at all. I just can't eat it. You know what they have in Malaysia? I couldn't believe it. We went to a Pizza Hut in there, and they had, get this, durian cheese pizza.
That is gnarly. Yeah, for all the people that are going up in arms around pineapple on pizza, yeah, here's another one for you. Yeah, durian. The first time I tasted durian, it was a gnarly experience. I had it at room temperature, and it was one of those things where I could taste it all day. It was like, it reminded me of like the pungent taste of like an onion or garlic, which is not something at all you would expect from fruit. Me to try it again, frozen, and it's a completely different experience. It's like, the consistency changes to that of like ice cream. The flavor is actually creamy and sweet, and there was none of that nasty aftertaste. So, Cryptomancer, if you haven't tried it frozen yet, I would encourage maybe giving it a second go, especially if you don't find the scent absolutely abhorrent anymore at this point.
Oh, that's interesting. I've never thought of what it might be like frozen as opposed to thawed. So yeah, all right. Maybe I'll give that a go and see what it's like. We'll see.
Cool. All right. Well, Hep, any other questions you got for Cryptomancer while we got him here?
No, I think we grilled him pretty well. So I think we got all we could out of him.
It's been a pleasure talking with you all. It's been a great range of topics today.
Oh man, yeah. If people weren't excited enough already, I have a feeling the conflict stuff is definitely going to perk some ears up as the episode starts making its rounds. Cryptomancer is
going to get some more packs now when the sale comes out. I really need to get on board this conflicts thing.
Yeah. Stake your packs, stake your cards, contribute to the war effort. It's going to be good.
Praetoria needs you.
Yeah, get those wagons lined up. Oh, beautiful. Well, Crypto
Praetoria can do for you. It's what you can do for Praetoria.
Beautiful. Well, I think we've got our quote for the thumbnail right there. I love it.
Yeah, perfect.
All right, Cryptomancer. Well, always a pleasure, man. It's good to catch up a little bit with you, and really looking forward to what the next couple of weeks is bringing for the community and for the company, and a community wide congratulations to you and the team for a successful land launch. We might be a little bit premature in wishing that congratulations, but
let's hope we don't have to issue a retraction next episode.
Yeah, don't jinx it.
But yeah, man, thank you for all of the efforts for the past 12 months on getting land out. I think, everybody is excited about the premise of land. I think nobody probably more excited than you guys at the team to have this 1.5 release in the rear view, man.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a huge release to have that out there. I know all of the team has been very passionate, working very hard on it. The developers have been putting in lots of extra hours on the weekend and really trying to do their utmost to make sure that we can get this out in as polished a state as possible with all the major bugs fixed. So I hope everyone really enjoys the launch tomorrow and really has a lot of fun setting up their plots. And it's been a pleasure talking to you again. Really fun to come on the show here today. So thanks a lot for having me. And I'm looking forward to great things coming over the next few weeks and the next year.
Always a pleasure, man. You're welcome back anytime. And, we'll try and do this, make it an annual thing, Cryptomancer. So expect us, knocking on that Discord door in, about 9-10 months time to try and wrangle some time to get you back on, man.
Sure thing. Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in, and happy Land Eve once again to everybody out there. I'm going to try my best to get this episode published ASAP, so it is relevant, and folks, as they're kind of perusing Praetoria and getting stuff sorted on their land, they have some content to listen to in the background. So, yeah, thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and you have been listening to
The People's Guild.